Welcome and thank you for learning how Grid can save you valuable time when configuring your protective guardrail system. Grid stands for Guardrail Interactive Designer and allows you to easily configure your own customized Ideal Warehouse Innovations Ideal Steel guardrail system. To get started, in your web browser, navigate to this URL. Click on the Get Started button, which then opens up Grid in a new tab. Here you'll see two major elements, the drawing canvas and the item toolkit. Now before we get in too deep, please remember that the most basic guardrail system is made up of posts anchored into the floor and rails, either a double or a single row installed between the posts. Later in this video, we'll explore some shortcuts and interesting options. Let's get started by placing our first 44-inch high post, which happens to be the most common one. One way to work with Grid is to click on the item you want in the toolkit and drag it onto the canvas, which is what I just showed. But because this is our first post, we can place it anywhere. I'm going to place it here because I tend to develop layouts from the left to the right and top to bottom. So next we'll add a rail. I'm going to select the most common, which is a double rail. Now there's two ways to do this. First, we click and drag a rail onto the post. That's one way. Another way is you'll see that there's these plus signs on all sides of the post. By clicking on the plus sign, it will automatically add a rail. To size the rail, click on the circle in the direction that you're changing it and drag it to the size you want. We offer standard rails in 1 foot increments from 2 to 10 feet long. Sticking with these sizes is the most cost-effective approach. We'll show you how to customize a little later. So I'm going to drag this out to its maximum size of 10 feet. If you drag it beyond 10 feet, it will automatically create a new rail with the remaining length. I'll show you how that works. So here, it's created a 10-foot rail with the maximum size and another 4-foot rail. I'll stick with the original configuration though, where I've got a 10-foot rail. Now keep in mind, the rail just can't hang in midair. It needs a post to support it. So when the rail is in this candy striping color, it means it's not configured properly. So when I click on the rail again, I can do two things. I can hit this plus sign and it automatically adds a post, changes the color to the standard color for that object, and now it's completely configured. The other way to do it is to drag the post of my choice on, and that also configures it. It's defaulted to the 44-inch high post, so if you want a different style of post, you'll have to select it from the toolkit. Please note, depending on your chosen measurement method, the overall length with your area lines you're seeing is set to outside of post to outside of post. It will encompass your entire rail line once you complete your section. The second measurement that you see underneath each individual rail section is from post center line to post center line. The actual rail sizes are smaller to fit in between the posts. And we'll go over different measurement methods a little later in the video. So now that I've got a configured system, let's click on Summary down here in the bottom left to see what we've got. This opens up another screen that tells you you've got 2 posts and 2 guardrail assemblies, tells you the sizes, and tells you the part numbers. Let's design a more elaborate system, as in an L-shaped configuration, and then add a few features that add to the functionality. One is a single low rail with an 18-inch post. The next is a set of rails with lift-out brackets for temporary access to an area. And finally, we'll add a pedestrian safety gate. So let's get started. I'm zooming out so that I can get a better idea of the total configuration. And now I'm going to go and take from the menu a double lift-out bracket rail and drag it to this post. Then I will lengthen the rail to 10 feet and add the post on the other side. The next thing I'll do is I'll take a single rail once I move my canvas over and add a single rail onto this side, extend it out to the maximum size, 10 feet, and now I've added a post. Now this is important for some people. The post that it's added is the 44-inch regular post. But in the case of a single rail where it's low to the ground, we can actually go and put a lower post in to an 18-inch size, and it will still configure. So there you've got a single row of configuration. On the other side here, we'll start our L shape. We'll put in another regular rail, and this time let's make it a little bit smaller. Let's say we're going to go with a 6-foot rail, put in the post, and now I'm going to add in a gate. Now you'll see that we have horizontal and vertical configuration, so you can choose the one that you want, bring it down, attach it to the post, and make it as long as you need it to be. With a gate, keep in mind that the overall size, the maximum size, is 4 feet or 48 inches. So then I can click on a post, and if I want to, I can continue to add another rail system. Now here what it's done is it's added the next rail system, but it's made it the same as the gate. So it will always default to the last thing that was placed. So in this case, I'm going to delete it. I'm going to take a double rail and place it here and add a post. So now we've got a complete configuration in an L shape, and you can see how that all plays out, and the different colors correspond to the legend. When I go to the summary now, it will show me all of the different parts and pieces. If I want to add a note for manufacturing, I can. Then I can close it. And now, if I'm happy with this configuration, I can save it. Now here's where you have choices. Typically the default will be to a letter size, but if you've got a massive layout with many posts and rails, it will shrink it down to fit on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, which is often too small. So what you can do is you can go and select a different size of paper for your configuration. In this case, it is a small configuration, so I'll save it to 8.5 by 11 letter size. And then you'll see that the first page shows you your configuration that you've designed, and the second page gives you your bill of materials along with your color-coded chart. Another handy feature for Grid is, and this happens all the time, where an adjustment needs to be made to the configuration once you've done it. So what you can easily do is go down here once you've printed this to a PDF and always come back to that same configuration by clicking on this link. Now let's look at some tips and tricks to help you move around the canvas and some neat features to help make your job of designing a guardrail system even more efficient. The first we'll talk about is the little menu that's up here, this little palette of items. To move around the canvas, you can use the arrows up, down, right, and left to move around the canvas, or by right-clicking your mouse, you'll see a hand appears and you can move through the screen this way. If you want to resize your canvas, you can zoom out and zoom back in. Alternatively, you can press Control and use your mouse scroll to do the same thing. If you want to go to full screen, you click on this, and if you want to recenter everything on the drawing canvas, you can click on the recenter button. Now I'll zoom in a little bit more here and show you our copy and paste feature, which is very nice. What I have to make sure of is that I get the posts in the selection square that I want, and now I can either go and hit, in Windows typically we hit Control-C to copy and Control-V to paste. In this particular case, that's what I'm going to do, and you'll see that I've pasted that down, and if I wanted to now, I could start a new configuration with that. I could take off one of the posts and now move it over to another post and join it on there. So it's a very easy way to duplicate things that you're already happy with. Another feature is rotating. So if I wanted to take this lift out bracket section again, and I wanted to move it out of the way, and I wanted to rotate the whole thing, I click on this green circle button, and it allows me to change this and invert it. If I just wanted to take the rail, I would just select the rail and do that. And now I just have to make sure that I attach it somewhere else. Now I'm going to go and move down the screen here to get to more of a blank canvas to show you the next feature. Rail sizing can be very easy when it's a small size, but when you get into larger configurations or when you get into situations where you have to go to the actual inch and not the 1 foot increments, there's a couple of ways to do that. So when you first place your rail, you'll see it defaults to 2 feet. To lengthen that, as I showed earlier, you press on the green circle and drag it to where you want. But if, let's say, you were needing more than 4 feet, you needed 4'2", there's 2 ways to accomplish that. The first is by holding over this green circle and pressing Control, and now moving, you'll see it goes in 1 inch increments. And then wherever you let go is the size that you'll get. Another way to do it is to double click on the rail and it opens up this dialog box. So now here, if you want to be more exact rather than dragging, you can say, I would like this rail to be 4 foot 10 inches. I can use these arrows to indicate the direction that I'm lengthening the rail. So in this case, I want to go right, and I click done, and it automatically makes it 4 foot 10. Then I can add a post, and we're done. All right, let's talk about making short work of big projects. If you have a large run of guardrail to do, you'll love this next trick. Let's say you have 200 feet to cover. You'll be here until next Tuesday trying to place posts and rails individually. So just place your first post, click on adding a rail, double click on the rail, and now add the run length that you want. For a simple example, I'm going to use 100 feet, and I'm going to go in the direction right and click done, and you'll see now that it has created the entire run using the default, which is a 10-foot rail. Now the nice thing is on a 100-foot run, a 10-foot rail fits perfectly. So that was one way to do it, and that's a very exact way to get to the exact measurement that you want. If you want to use a simpler method, which would be more by eye, you can go add a post, add a rail, and just use the green button and drag it to the approximate length that you want. You'll see the numbers showing up there, 100 feet, and let go, and it will also automatically configure. So now you have your full rail system. Chances are you're going to be out by an inch or something like that. You've got an obstruction. You can very easily now go in here and zoom in, select the post, make a change to it, change one rail size. But the main thing is you've got the whole run done. Let's talk about another feature, which is rail size behavior. Now this is something that you should decide before you do your layouts. There are 2 choices, cost-effective and symmetrical, and I'll show you each one. I'll start first by placing my post, adding a rail, and making it a 50-foot run, which gives you all 10-foot rail sections. If you want to use the most cost-effective approach, which is this, it's designed this with the 10-foot rail, which is the most cost-effective option. If, however, I'm now doing a different configuration that isn't quite 50 feet, which fits perfectly, let's use 46 feet, you'll see it takes the most cost-effective approach, which is 10 foot, 10 foot, 10 foot, 10 foot, and then puts a 6-foot section on here. In some cases, users would rather have a more symmetrical approach to this and have the rail sizes match all the way along the run, best as possible. So let's go and change now to symmetrical and do that same 46-foot configuration to see what the difference is. So here you'll see it's selected 10 foot at the beginning and then 9 foot all the way across. So this is a much more symmetrical layout. Now if you're really conscious about the inch sizes, you can still adjust these rails, but this makes short work of a potentially time-consuming challenge. All right. Let's talk a little bit about changing the measurement method, which is this toggle down here. You have 4 choices. It generally defaults to this outside of post to outside of post. There's a little information button here that when you click on, shows you in a visual sense what we're looking at from the measurement method. So outside of post to outside of post takes you all the way to where the top part of the post or the main part of the post goes. Center post to center post, and then outside of base plate to outside of base plate is here. And that's going to be very important if you're looking at a tight configuration or a tight space that you're trying to put this in. So it's defaulting to the outside of post to outside of post. If I change it to post center line, you'll see that the leader lines for the dimensions change to the center of the post and give you that measurement. When you go to inside of post to inside of post, it's from inside of post to the inside of post, which is basically the rail actual size if you're just doing one single run. And lastly, outside of base plate to outside of base plate gives you the entire length physically installed rail system. Now let's talk about doing multiple designs. In some cases, you'll be configuring a rail system in one way to see what it looks like, to see what the bill of materials looks like, to see what the cost looks like. And then you might want to try another way. So what you would do is keep this open. You don't want to lose this configuration. You open up a new tab, go to that same URL, and just get started with the new configuration. All right, well, when you're all done, you can check your items through the summary. You can then save your file, choosing the paper size that most suits your layout. And then once it's printed and saved to a PDF, you can then send that to your Ideal Warehouse Innovations representative for a double check. You can also get a cost proposal and to get the system on order and quickly installed. If you need help along the way, you can click on the instruction button at any time for quick notes or connect with us at our contact page on our website. And we can also put you in touch with a local Ideal Steel Guardrail expert for outstanding service. Thank you for choosing Ideal Warehouse Innovations for protecting your people.